Formula One fans might be losing one of its biggest stars sooner than we thought. Max Verstappen, the young Dutch driver who has been captivating audiences with his skill and fearlessness on the track, could bid farewell to F1 much earlier than we anticipated. So what's behind this potential bombshell? Stay tuned to find out. As the sun set on a picturesque day in Melbourne, the tension in the air was palpable. The world champion had just secured pole position for the Grand Prix, but his scathing critique of the sprint race format had everyone talking. He made it clear that he believed the sprint race was not in the DNA of the sport and that F1 was going about improving race weekends in the wrong way. F1 had introduced the sprint format in 2021, and this season they increased the number of sprint races to 6. The format replaced traditional qualifying, with Friday's second practice replaced by a qualifying session that determined the grid for Saturday's sprint race. The sprint, in turn, determined the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix. But the sport was in discussions with the teams and the FIA to improve the format, with a proposal to hold a second qualifying session on Saturday morning to make up the grid for the sprint and for the shortened race to become a standalone event. However, the world champion, who had previously expressed his dissatisfaction with the format, was dismissive of the entire concept and warned that any further expansion of it on the calendar could cause him to leave the sport. He said, "Even if you change the format, I don't find that it is in the DNA of Formula One to do these kinds of sprint races. I hope there won't be too many changes, otherwise I won't be around for too long. I'm not a fan at all. When we do all that kind of stuff, the weekend becomes very intense and we already do a lot of races. But it is not the right way to go about it. I understand they want to make every at-the-track day exciting, but they should reduce the weekend and only race on Saturday and Sunday and make those 2 days exciting." Formula One is very much in favour of the sprint format, which it is deemed to be a success. Certainly it goes down well with promoters because they gain an additional competitive session on a Friday. While the format has been well received by race promoters, fans have been less impressed. Many of the sprint races have been uneventful, with little overtaking or risk-taking by drivers who are wary of damaging their cars before Sunday's race. Additionally, the sprint races are part of an already long and grueling season, which features a record 23 races in 2022. This has caused frustration among drivers like Max Verstappen, who believe that the sprint format places an unnecessary burden on teams and drivers. Verstappen continued, "We are heading into seasons where we could have 24 or 25 races. And if you then start adding more, it is not worth it for me. I will not enjoy that. F1 is about getting the most of it in qualifying and having an amazing Sunday over a long race distance. That is the DNA of the sport, and I don't understand why we need to change that." He urged the series to concentrate on improving the quality of competition between the teams instead of changing the format of its events. He said, "I think the action has been good, and how you get even more action is about getting the cars closer, getting more teams able to fight for the win. I think naturally, the show will be great if we have 6-7 teams already fighting for a win. That would be insane, and you really don't need to change anything." Also, Lando Norris agrees with Verstappen's recent comments that Formula One stick to Sunday races as the sprint events are not what a race should be about. The McLaren driver said, "Growing up, always having qualifyings and then a race, that's always what I've known Formula One to be. So in a way, I'm with Max on that. I love just to build up the pressure of just having qualifying and one race with nothing coming between. That's just the structure of it." But having said that, the Briton conceded that the nature of the circuit also determines the impact of a sprint race. He added, "At the correct tracks, I also don't mind it. So when it was in Austria or Monza, tracks you can actually race on, Interlagos, reasonably, not the easiest track for most people to race on." When Verstappen's teammate Sergio Perez was asked about his thoughts on the sprint race format, he didn't hold back. In his blunt assessment, he called the format very boring and questioned its benefit to the sport. Perez said, "I don't see the benefit of having the sprint race. There's nothing happening in it, and I can imagine it's also boring for fans and drivers. It doesn't bring anything, to be honest." Perez went on to express his disappointment with the current format, stating that he didn't feel it brought anything to the table. However, he acknowledged that the sprint race was introduced to improve the show and that it would ultimately be up to fans to decide if it was a success. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton is more open to the sprint format, but he made clear that it would not be suitable for every venue. Lewis said, "Putting them in places like Brazil that creates a lot of opportunity, or somewhere like Baku, is going to be the best places for overtaking. I'm not against it, as long as they're selective of where they put it." However, Christian Horner bemoaned the prospect of a sprint event on the streets of Baku. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix will be the first of 6 race weekends this year to feature a sprint session. Qualifying will move to Friday, so the short-form race can take place on the Saturday before the main event on Sunday as usual. Even without the sprint, the Baku circuit offers plenty of potential for crashes, which could lead to lengthy and expensive repair jobs. Plus, it is followed the next weekend by another street event in Miami, making it even more important for teams to avoid damage as much as possible. With that in mind, Horner is not at all impressed that Baku was chosen to be a sprint weekend. The Red Bull chief said to reporters in Melbourne, "The reality is, it's absolutely ludicrous to be doing the first sprint race of the year in a street race like Azerbaijan. I think from a spectacle point of view, from a fan point of view, it's probably going to be one of the most exciting sprint races of the year. From a cost cap perspective, all you can do is trash your car, and it costs a lot of money around there, so one race is enough in Baku. The fact that we've got two, there could be some action there. But that's part of the challenge, and it's part of the task that we've got. Hopefully we can tidy up the format for the sprint races coming up, that they are a bit more dynamic. I know that the sporting directors have been working hard on that, and hopefully we can get that finalised." Other team bosses were in agreement, and the nervousness was obvious. McLaren chief Zak Brown warned of the danger of big crash damage bills, while Aston Martin's Mike Crack admitted his nervousness, and Alpine boss Otmar Safnauer said his team would be stockpiling spare parts as a precaution. Haas chief Gunther Steiner added, "I think we know enough about sprint events that we know how to get prepared. I think everybody is leaving a little bit of a margin there, knowing that some of these races could be tough for the budget." Meanwhile, a proposed new format for the sprint weekends is being considered, which would see the FP2 session on a Saturday morning scrapped for a second qualifying. That would be for the sprint later in the day, while Friday's qualifying would be for the main race as usual. While Max Verstappen has repeatedly expressed his disapproval for the sprint race format, Scuderia's Ferrari Charles Leclerc and Haas driver Kevin Magnussen did not share his opinion. Charles Leclerc said, "Yeah, I like the Friday, especially because normally it's a bit of a boring Friday on normal race weekends. You've got FP1, FP2, and you do many laps for not much. But now on sprint weekend, you need to be straight away on it in FP1, and then you've got qualifying straight away, so that enjoy." Danish driver Kevin Magnussen agreed with Charles Leclerc and said that the sprint race weekends are in fact better than the usual format with 2 free practice sessions on Friday, which have no real value for most of the fans. When the media asked about Max Verstappen's comments regarding the fact that the sprint races are not very interesting for the drivers at the front, Kevin Magnussen replied, "Yeah, it must be really boring. I kind of like it. Max has a good point that the risk that you want to take in a sprint is less because it decides the position for Sunday. So I think maybe a good tweak could be to separate that so you can go for it. I do enjoy going from practice 1 straight into qualifying as well because, as Max says, it puts a lot of pressure on to find the rhythm quickly and get the setup right because I think that's when 3 practices is quite a lot. So anyway, I kind of like it." Now over to you. What's your thought about the addition of more sprint races to the F1 calendar? Let us know in the comments section below. That will be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you can always get to watch more videos like this. See you in the next video.